Hi everyone, I'm Gina Minardi and I'm a licensed therapist who got fed up with therapy. This is a one-woman show about my journey of finding the spaces between non-traditional approaches of healing. What I learned is that there's no one right way to heal, and you truly are your best resource. Therapists and healers are meant to support you on your path, but they don't have all of the answers. You do. This show is about the spaces between laughter, tears, thoughts, ego, soul, messy growth, and moments of joy. It's about personal liberation, inner knowing, and the tools that get you there. I will cover topics that make many of us uncomfortable and interviewing people who are willing to go there. I've spent thousands of hours listening to human beings navigate their life story, from rehabs in Malibu to homeless shelters in East LA, and now my private practice. It has been some of the most profound, painful, and beautiful moments in my life. Thank you so much for joining me. Hi, friends, and welcome back to Spaces Between. I feel like today's conversation is going to be really deep and a lot of fun because Eva Clay is just filled with life. And I recently met her on a meditation retreat. And the first thing that I was attracted to was her big, bold laugh and just kind of this energy that fills the room. And she also happens to be a sexologist. She is a sex master. She's a licensed psychotherapist and a former professor of neuropsychology. So I would say that Eva, she blends science, soul, and sex. And so we're just going to talk all of those things over the next hour. So hi, Eva, how are you?
Like that.
Yes, you are. So Eva, I'm just going to go straight with the question that I think a lot of people want to know in long-term relationships, or not even in long-term relationships, because we also have to learn how to make love to ourselves. But in longer-term relationships, a lot of what I hear in sessions is keeping the passion alive and keeping desire, how to really invoke and keep that desire going in a long-term relationship, because it's tough. So that will be my first question as I go into many others. I'll let you rip.
I love this question. And I help couples with this daily. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Okay.
And I'll just say this, it's not going to come from a particular technique, buying new sex toys, having a threesome, going to a swingers club. Like, these are all of the attempts that I see a lot of couples making to keep their passion alive and to reinvigorate the excitement in their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you some better ideas than that. Those are not bad ideas, by the way. I'm not opposed to any of that. By all means, like, engage in all of that, but it might not bring you the long-term sustenance that you're really wanting in a deep relationship, a long relationship. It has to start first with understanding that your sex is an ever expanding universe. It's ever evolving. And you are constantly going to be changing, growing, evolving, shifting, contracting, picking up kinks here and there, picking up crushes here and there, picking up aversions. And so your sexuality is not fixed. It's not like, I like this and that's what I'm going to be like the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
When you grok that philosophy, both for yourself and for your partner, then you move out of having sex the same way every time, all the time, because you've mapped what each other likes. And you move into sexuality as being a grand adventure. It's a grand adventure. And it's so complex and delicious and deep and wild and wow and surprising. And so we have to begin with the mindset. Okay, so secondarily, to keep the passion alive, to keep desire fresh, you have to stop looking to your partner to please you. So what I see in couples where the desire, where the spark goes out, is that they're doing what I call riding on novelty. So you meet someone, you're attracted, you enter a sexual relationship, things are harmonious, so you enter a deep relationship, and you're kind of getting your thrill off of the actual connection with your partner. They're giving you something that's exciting and that's lovely and wonderful and deep. You're giving them something back. That has a shelf life. I'm making some gestures here.
Yes.
Your listeners can't see it.
Yeah.
But that, okay, when you're looking to each other, and this is where our culture gets it wrong, because we are entrained in the context that we're living in consumerist culture, in romantic mythology culture that we're living in, that our partner is supposed to please us and entertain us and engage us and deliver to us and support us financially, by the way, and raise the kids and. What I see in couples where they keep the spark alive is that they don't look to each other for that, but there actually develops a third entity in the relationship. And that is the phenomenological field between them. Okay, so what is that? In some schools of thought, we would say, put God between you. So that your partner becomes a facilitator and a witness to the pleasure and the ascension that you experience through the portal of sexual arousal. So if your partner can become a facilitator and a witness and an ally to you in your own sovereign sexuality, you won't look to them to provide for you sexual pleasure and entertainment. And when you shift into that second mindset I mentioned, where they're the facilitator, the spark never goes out. You never get bored of each other because every erotic engagement is a new journey into some other dimension of consciousness, and you never know where you're going to go. You get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. I think I would love you to elaborate a little bit further on the idea of your partner as a facilitator.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let me give you just kind of a blow-by-blow description of what that could possibly look like.
Okay.
So I train couples in this. It's so fun. We do it on Zoom. I actually teach people how to fuck well. It's so fun. And so what you have to dismantle, you have to disconnect this sense of routine. Like, I do this to you, you do this to me, I do this to you, and then we fuck. Throw it out the window, the best thing you can possibly do. And play with this idea of one person gets lavished per evening. Okay. We have this kind of sense of like tit for tat. Like, you do this and then I pay you back. Did you get off yet? Now I'm going to get you off. And we use this word. This is like, drive me crazy when couples say this. They're like, did you finish? I hate that. So can we just like set that aside for a second and talk about lavishing each other? So let's say you, the woman, are being lavished for the evening, and your partner lays you on the bed, strokes your whole body with his fingertips or her fingertips, massages your feet, gives you delicious things to eat, delights your senses, holds a rose to your nose, tickles you with the rose petal, lavishes your whole body head to toe, sings to you in each of your ears, and then massages you erotically. Okay, your breasts, your neck, your ears, your yoni, your feet, your whole body. And while he's lavishing you with this touch and praise and affection and attention, you are going deep into a journey of sensation and pleasure. And the more practiced you can become at this, the more often you're going to meet God in that place. And it feels euphoric, it feels ecstatic. So your partner is just facilitating you. He's helping you drop so deeply into a place in your own cellular reality, in your own body, in your own breath, that you enter another kind of consciousness. And it feels like an altered consciousness. But there's not this sense of like, okay, you're going to rub my genitals. Now it's time for me to rub your genitals, and then I'm going to get you off, and I'm going to get off. It's like, no.
Yeah.
So this is like making sex something totally different. This is tantric. This is a tantric way of being.
Yeah.
Okay. And then maybe on another night you lavish him, and you facilitate him. You become his shaman, and you guide him into a deeper place that he's never even touched before. Maybe you give him a lingam massage, which is a penis, okay? Lingam is penis. You give him an erotic penis massage where you're pressing into places in his ligaments that he's never been touched. And it brings about a sensation that he's not quite used to, but it feels really good and interesting. And that drops him deeper into his own body. And perhaps because he's male, it ends with an ejaculation, if that's what he really loves. But you're not obligated to then get on top of him and have sex. Or you're not like, you have to dismantle the routine. Okay. Does that help to explain what I mean by facilitating?
1,000%. 1,000%. Yes. And for those in my audience who take issue with, the word God, or, have a little bit of an aversion towards sex being this, kind of evoking spirit or being part of your spiritual practice, what is language or something that somebody could use when you talked about God being in between the two people? Is there something else, not that we need to curtail, but I'd be curious about that.
I love that question because, my work, I have this in my bio, my work is the menage a trois of soul, sex, and science. So the scientific experience of that is dropping into theta wave.
Okay.
So theta wave being the meditative state, we've all experienced it. It feels a little bit like a hypnotic trance. Okay. So when you can utilize pleasure as a portal, as a vehicle that drops you into deep theta state. It's in the theta state that our brains become the most plastic, meaning we enter the highest state of neuroplasticity. So the brain becomes more permeable, it's impressionable, and also subconscious material can come forward more readily in that state. So that's when transformation happens, is when we're in a state of neuroplasticity, and it takes theta wave to get us there. So what it'll feel like is a very relaxed state, very open, flowy. You can't see my body right now, but I'm kind of flowing with my body. It feels like bliss, actually, is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most beautiful scientific description of really dropping into that trance state where you lose the self. And if somebody can get down with the language of just energy, right? Where you just become this ecstatic energy and that bliss state. Oh yeah. I mean, drop into those theta waves.
So hot.
Yes.
We're just coming off of Joe Dispenza together. So he would say, become no one, nothing, and nowhere.
Yeah.
So in Tantra, we call this like when you dissolve the ego, you dissolve into the cosmos, you become one. It's a state of oneness with the cosmos. Most people don't think about sex as a place to do that. But sex is absolutely the place to do that.
Yeah. It's also, I would say, and not many psychotherapists would talk about, I believe it's also a space to really move through old trauma. And it's a space to move through blocks, and not everybody would agree with that. What are your thoughts around that?
I absolutely believe that trauma can and often is healed and remediated through lovemaking. And if it's skillful. If it's skillful. I work with a lot of couples where one partner has significant trauma and it's really difficult to have sex. Or when they do have sex, that trauma gets reenacted and gets kicked up but not healed.
Yeah.
But I love that we're talking about neuroplasticity and theta state, because that's also the place where trauma heals.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And pleasure energy is healing energy. Ultimately, when I can break down the science and the molecules for you of pleasure, but I won't. We don't have time for that. Okay. But suffice to say, there are several ways of healing trauma. One of them is to release the trauma and have catharsis and clear it from the body. Another way is simply to pour pleasure all over it. And what that does is create neuroplasticity in the brain again, so that a new imprint can be made into the brain of the experience of sex. So if what you experienced previously in your sexuality was violation or trauma, and you're now having a loving experience of sex, you can, through neuroplasticity, just kind of switch that out. So that you imprint a positive, loving experience with sexuality. But it has to be done very skillfully and carefully. And that's one thing I help couples learn how to do, is become each other's healer. Yeah. Ultimately, that's what we are to each other. Yeah. We are each other's healers. Yeah. So yes, and is the answer to your question.
Yes, and yes. And I think as Eva was saying that, it made me also want to say that those who struggle with trauma, that we're not saying that this is the only way, right? There are so many ways to go about healing your trauma, but I wanted to illuminate, because I don't think it is really something that's discussed within the world of psychotherapy, that, getting into this different space and safe with somebody to really safe and skillful to move through. Yeah. Right.
You got it. You nailed it. Yeah. And beware of that. One very common expression of sexual trauma is hypersexuality. Yeah. So simply going out and having a lot of sex is not necessarily going to be that healing agent for you. Yeah. But having the right kind of sex, loving sex.
You bring up a really interesting point. A few things, but I'm going to modulate myself and go. Okay. So there are a lot of people, I would say, that also have insatiable sex drives. And I would never say that that's a bad thing. And I'm going to use a friend, and I hope she's okay with this. She'll probably be very, very stoked to get information from you. But it feels like this space of making herself feel good enough and a space of self-soothing. And there's some shame around that. There's shame around maybe I engage this too much to sort of fill myself up, and maybe I don't have other ways of finding that self-love. So there is this level of hypersexuality, but it's within a contained marriage. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, lots of thoughts. It depends on where it's coming from. And look, for millennia, women have been shamed and controlled and violated sexually. And so there's this myth that women shouldn't have a high sex drive, or women shouldn't be lustful. And so I want to just encourage every woman to own that lustful aspect of herself. And I have the great, great honor and privilege of being around a lot of women who take my workshops or work with me clinically. I teach a lot of group programs. And so I get to be around groups of women. And you know what? We're fucking dirty. Women are fucking dirty. We are dirty, filthy creatures. And it's so awesome to witness. When we're safe and we're around each other, there are no men present. I mean, we're dry humping each other. We're dancing on poles. We're pulling down our pants. We're talking about cocks. We are dirty, dirty fuckers. And more power to the feminine for that. Really own it, because that's a place where we're safe to express that. Yeah. But if the sexuality is coming from a compulsion, if it's medicating, if we're feeling you're unwilling to feel, if it's creating a kind of dopamine addiction, meaning you're getting a spike in your brain, even from masturbation. I know women who are really hooked on their vibrator, and they're sort of rubbing one out every hour or whatever. Like it's really how you use sex, like anything. Like I'm drinking a cup of coffee right now. Why am I drinking the coffee? Where's that coming from? Is that addiction? Is that compulsion? Yeah. Do I want to be a little more sparkly for our interview?
Yes.
It's more of what it is.
Yes.
So looking at the motive, and women ask me this all the time of like, is there a number of how many sex partners does it take in order for this to be a problem? Is there a number of times per day that I masturbate before it becomes a problem? Like, no, there's really no measure. The measure is, how is that working for you?
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing from you, so somebody really sensing in to themselves and asking themselves and going deep with, is this starting to feel like a compulsion? Am I distracting myself from really feeling my feelings and not being able to go there? And I think at the end of the day, human beings intuitively know when we're using something to mask maybe uncomfortable or painful feelings and emotions, and going to that space, whether it's the weed, the coffee, the sex, social media, all of the things that help us self-regulate versus learning how to sit and learning how to be with. Yeah. But I also love when you were talking about just all the women getting down and dirty together. And there's so much. I mean, this year alone, I have noticed the upwelling in my female clients of this collective wounding and sort of the shame around sex. And then also how many women, and I'm not saying just women, but how many people have experienced sexual abuse and what that does. I'm going a little bit on a side tangent, but that has been profound for me this year. I would say with the female clients in particular, it's 90% of women that I work with. So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. It just makes me think about how sex is beautiful, and it's also can be complicated for people to establish a healthy, vivacious, vibrant relationship with it.
It's true, yes. And I think we're in that state collectively. I think there's been such a sexual revolution going on right now, and some parts of it I love and some I'm a little concerned about. But we are reconfiguring, I think, as women, our relationship to our bodies and to our sexuality. And look, there's so many distractions in our culture today. And I think this is a great question I offer to the women I work with, the couples I work with, is what is the vice enabling you to avoid? And oftentimes that vice is Instagram or fantasy or pornography, or some of these ones we don't talk about as often. What is that enabling you to avoid? And in my line of work, I have 3 magic words I ask everybody to really grok, and that is make nothing wrong. We must make nothing wrong. In order to turn toward it and befriend it and be with it, we must not make it wrong. So if you have a bit of a proclivity for Instagram and scrolling, let's not make it wrong, but just ask yourself, what is that enabling you to avoid? And can you spend a moment each day actually turning toward the thing that you're attempting to avoid? Most often what I'm finding, especially in the last year, is it's anxiety. We're looking to self-regulate through these vices, and sex included. And look, there are definitely worse ways to self-regulate. But if we're not in the practice of being with discomfort, being with uncomfortable feelings, that's a problem.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hi, friends. I just wanted to take a quick break and thank you for tuning in. I love making this podcast for you, and I hope you love listening. If you do, the best way to show it is leaving a review especially on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much in advance. And now back to the show. I love you said, I wrote it down somewhere, but emotional intimacy has everything to do with sex drive as well, which I'm digressing a bit, but I wanted to talk a little bit about also cultivating emotional intimacy with the self. Because when I read that from you, I went, oh, hell yes. I mean, that's everything, and I think, and when we think about emotional intimacy and women and men, our relationship to our bodies, do we wake up every day and go, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm not beautiful? The list goes on. And so what are some practices and how do you help your clients develop emotional intimacy with the self so that they can explore their sex lives in a healthy manner?
So many ways, Gina. But the first thing, I just go with the first thing that comes to my mind. And what arrived was the breath. I find, I'd love to hear from you on this too, but I find that when we develop an intimacy with our breath, that extrapolates into every area of the life. Like literally, if you're listening to this right now, just take a long, delicious, luscious, deep breath. And that's your relationship to your life force. Breath is an expression of your life force, being alive. So I work with my clients to start there. I do a lot of breath work in my clinical work. And otherwise, being able to name what you're feeling, as simple as that is. Again, we have so many ways and so many reasons to not name and not feel our feelings. So get present with that and just name what you're feeling. Write it down. Speak it.
Both of what you brought up are just such powerful tools. And the breath is everything. I think you and I also witnessed that in the Joe Dispenza experience.
Holy crap.
So, I mean, it's really, and also, I mean, just for myself, there's a saying, which is the quality of your life is the quality of your breath. So really going back and developing that rich and deep relationship with your breath. As you said, life force energy. And then secondary, that part of being able to name what you're feeling. And I think in relationship, if we're to go back to couples for a second, I think if couples could also, if we all could learn that skill, whether it's in friendships or relationships of, I am feeling, right? I am feeling this. And not that it has to be with somebody. This is also, I know you were saying this can be a practice just with the self, but I noticed all of your trainings, the Imago and the Gestalts and then Esther. So you have a lot of also dialogue under your belt of how to name our feelings and how to have rich communication, which I might segue, because as therapists, we're trained in so many different modalities and ways of, talking out our difficult emotions. What have you found to be the most effective within relationships or just in life with human beings? They don't have to be in partnership.
Are you talking about communication?
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. I love the Imago dialogue. But I want to pause that for a second and touch on an idea around the breath and couples.
Okay.
So I'm a big believer. I've done a lot of podcasts, just like we were talking about, and I'm a big believer in sharing tools when I talk about this because I want you to, your listeners to really benefit. And ancient tantric yogic techniques to use with a partner is just to synchronize your breaths. As simple as that is. Sit across from your partner or even side by side. Put a timer on for 2 minutes and inhale and exhale together. The effects of this are profound. And what it does is it triggers mirror neuronal activity in the brain. So your brains and your nervous systems are going to begin to sync when you do this. Same with eye gazing. So these are activities that promote bonding, and it feels fucking amazing. The body is releasing oxytocin and endorphins and opioids when you do this. So if you were to begin every intimate engagement with your partner in this way, look into each other's eyes, literally set a timer on your phone for like a minute or 2 minutes. Look into each other's eyes and breathe together. And then begin your touch and your connection, your holding, your hugging. Your bodies are attuned to each other already, and it's going to heighten your experience of pleasure just because of the neurochemistry that's coursing through your body. So, one tip.
I mean, I'm just sitting here going, yes, yes to that. Absolutely. I think that also would be really deeply uncomfortable for a lot of people to have that level of intimacy, of staring in the eyes. You said what, for 2 minutes?
Yeah, maybe that's too long for you. Maybe do 1 minute. Or maybe not do the eyes, sit side by side, shoulder to shoulder, because there's a different kind of sync. Look, we evolved from the Serengeti working side by side with each other, shoulder to shoulder. And so the body bonds when someone's sitting next to us. Men actually tend to bond better side by side. Women bond better face to face. There's a whole evolutionary science to that. I find it fascinating, but suffice to say that. So switch it up and try both.
Okay.
And I work with couples where certainly that gets super uncomfortable. So I want to give you one last tip. If you are daring enough to try this at home with your partner and set your timer for 1 minute, is when it gets super awkward and you feel like you want to come out of your skin, take a deep breath instead. Because what happens is the nervous system upregulates and you get anxious because you're not used to that level of intimacy with someone, and it's scary. So all you need to do is take a deep breath and down regulate the system, just calm it down. And then you start to communicate to your nervous system that it's safe to be seen this deeply. And boom, your sex is going to get hot. I promise.
I mean, even the cadence in your voice as you were going through that and also creating that space. I mean, oh yeah, it will most definitely get hot. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, I've got so many questions. I'm going to be mindful of time. What are the breathing for yourself and your own? I'm going to go a little bit into your own healing practices, because I always, when I get psychotherapists, other healers, what is really part of your journey? So you spoke of the breath and breath work. So what do you use on a daily basis? Whether it's breath work, other techniques, because I think the audience loves to hear that.
Yeah. Well, ironically, I do the exact breath patterns that Joe Dispenza taught us that weekend or that week that we were together. So what he's teaching is actually ancient technology. It's ancient tantric yoga. And so I've been studying and practicing Tantra for 12 years now. And so every day I pulse the muscles of my pelvic floor. Hugely important for all people, especially women over 40, or especially women who have given birth. Keep those pelvic floor muscles strong and toned, my sisters. So every day I'm inhaling and I'm squeezing the pelvic floor and bringing energy up my body through my center channel to my brain. So I'm literally using the power of my pussy to squeeze energy to the brain. And look, it's not just energy you're squeezing up to the brain, it's actually cerebrospinal fluid. So the ancient yogis were really on to something. We now know what it is, and you want to get that fluid up. So that's the breath work I use. I also do long, slow, deep breathing. So I do this at night to calm myself before I go to bed. in through the nose, out through the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, so twice a day when I wake, and then before I go to sleep, I do
Okay.
breath work.
Okay. So would you say for yourself personally that breath work is really it's your go-to, it's your anchor?
I wish I could say that and be honest about it.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Yeah, be honest.
I'm a big believer, and I think I should do it more. I think we all should do it more. But I would say more my spiritual practice is movement.
Okay.
Honestly, is embodiment and dance and movement and rhythm. That's really my thing. And for
Yeah.
many, many years, I facilitated ecstatic dance events. So that would probably be my primary passion.
Okay.
And women have a unique relationship to rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when I work with my women, you asked a question earlier, and I almost said this. Um, get into rhythm every day. Move your body rhythmically every day.
Ooh, you are the first person to come on and say that, and I love that. And
Cool.
can you say why? Because a lot of, those who want to know, okay, well, why should I get into rhythm every day? And what's that gonna do for me?
Yeah. So, gosh, again, there's a whole science to it.
Yeah.
I won't go into
Yeah.
all the science, but when you entrain the mind to the body,
Mhm.
entrain the mind to the body, and so much of all these different spiritual practices and these disciplines and techniques we're talking about work to facilitate what we call interoception, which is sensation throughout the body. So, as a somatic psychotherapist and sexologist, this is like what it's all about. Is like, how can we connect the mind to the fingertips, connect the mind or the brain to the clitoris? Yay! Connect to the feet. So we want to connect the whole body. So moving rhythmically with your whole body in a way that is non-habitual, in a way that is not like dancing at a club, but you're like flailing wildly like a wild woman. It promotes interoception, which is whole body sensation, which is going to make your sex, your pleasure, your orgasms full body instead of just localized to the genitals. But it also promotes neuroplasticity because you're not moving habitually, and it forms new neural pathways in the brain. It makes you learn faster. It makes you remember things. It makes you more assertive. It makes you more confident. On and on, all these benefits. So get into motion, put on your favorite song, and flail around like a wild woman.
Yes. Okay. Flail around. And men, you do it too. Get out there. I mean, I know you said that women in particular really getting into this space, but I feel, and men, all of us get into movement.
Yes. Women need chaotic movement.
Okay, we need chaotic movement.
Women need non-linear, chaotic, unchoreographed, unscripted movement. Men need tribal rhythm. Men need to jump up and down in place. Okay. Men need to they need some kind of pounding experience with their body, jumping, pounding. Ask any man, he doesn't want to flow like we do. He wants to, he wants to dance around the fire, beating a drum. That's actually bringing more masculine energy. That's a match for his masculine frequency. Compared to women, a match for our feminine frequency is more flow.
Okay. That was going to bring me into, because I ask everybody, and this can be, you don't have to give a long answer because this could be a long answer, but your definition of feminine and masculine energy. Because I hear different responses from everybody, and I love it because I think everybody has their take on masculine and feminine energy and how to really embody and invoke and even also step into balance in the two. Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, I just want to name that my teacher was David Data. Okay. I worked with him for several years, but not for a little while. So I kind of follow his teachings, but I'm a bit more tantric. So feminine is ungendered. Okay, so I want to take masculine, feminine out of the genders, and that we all carry some balance of both, some ratio of both these energies, and we need them both equally. Feminine energy is nonlinear, it's chaotic, it's undular, it's curvaceous, it wanders, it's non-navigational, it's non-directive, it's diffuse, it's all encompassing, it's wild, it's untamable, it's the force of Shakti, it's the force of water, it's the moon, it's pure, uncontained power. The masculine is the containment of that power. The masculine is linear, navigational, logical, rational. Imagine that the feminine are the raging waters of the river, and the masculine are the banks that direct it. One of my favorite teachings, this is a tantric yoga teaching. Sally Kempton talks a lot about this, how without the feminine, the masculine is inert. So the masculine, if there were just banks of a river, but nothing flowing through it, the banks of that river have no purpose. But it's the mighty force of the Shakti, of the feminine power, that give purpose to the masculine. So the feminine is the force of creation. The feminine, in my lineage, is the true power. But the feminine without containment is chaos and destruction.
It brings me to our experience at Joe's. I felt that there was such a beautiful merging of both the masculine and feminine energy. I don't know if you felt that as well.
Oh, I was tracking that.
Right?
You bet.
Yeah.
No, we were in great, like impeccable containment with which to absolutely pop energetically. And as people were having these like Kundalini awakening experiences and like shrieking and I don't want to give too much away, but like they're having these exalted experiences, they were held, they were contained, there was structure. And there was also flow. Like, who knew that when we showed up at 4 a.m. for pineal gland meditation, that it was going to last 4.5 hours? I don't tell you that.
For
I'm
a
like,
reason.
WTF, 4.5 hours.
Yes. Yeah. But oof, what a profound. Wow. We'll have a whole other episode on that, because what a profound week that was. Yes. So, okay, moving on to, these are my last kind of quick fire questions, and I like people to not think about them so much, and clearly you just go off your toes. So, first one being, this is just more of the fun question. Are you more of a Beyonce or Rihanna woman?
I love Beyonce.
Okay. I knew you were a Beyonce woman. Okay. And next, going into a bit more of the deeper questions. Why do you think we're here on this planet, and why are you here?
I think that we are here on this planet as a great experiment. I think we're like an ant farm to some alien beings. Why I'm here is to serve the ant farm.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'm here to serve, period.
Okay. And what do you think happens after death?
I think we return to source. We merge back into oneness. I've studied this extensively, fascinated with death. Yeah, we go back to where we came. We go home.
Okay. All right. And we've all had a mentor or a teacher, somebody along the way that said something that has just kind of catapulted us in our life, or really has just marinated deep in the loins of our soul. What is that saying? What is that phrase that you sometimes, it just percolates, pops up?
Gosh, as overused as it is, I have to go with Marianne Williams' note about it's not our darkness we're afraid of, it's our power.
Oof.
It's our light.
Yeah.
I'm hacking it, but you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yes. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much of our work, and particularly with women, is removing the obstacles to being able and willing to embody and then to express that power and to put it into form on the planet. And that's what I'm here to support, is women doing that.
Yes, you are, Eva. Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think that was the last of all of those questions, but I would love you to share for anybody to find you. If you've got workshops coming up, I think you are such a fantastic resource and you're just an expert at what you do. So I'll let you go with that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listeners, my loves, come find me at evaclay.com, EVACLAY.com. Get on my mailing list so you can stay abreast of my offerings. Of course, we're in COVID times right now. I think just coming out of COVID times. So I'm going to name that and mark that as our reality, that we're coming out of COVID times. And so there'll be a whole lot of new offerings coming from me. Come into my ecosphere and onto my mailing list, and you'll learn about what's going on. Yeah. And I still do individual coaching and psychotherapy with women and with couples and with men.
Okay.
But you'll learn more when you come to my website, and I'd love to continue the conversation.
Okay.
Come say hi.
I mean, everybody who's listening, please go and do yourself a favor and go explore, get healed, and connect with Eva. She's amazing. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. And
Thank you, love.
Yeah, now go enjoy Hawaii. Yes. Go do that. Mwah. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Hello. Bye.
Hi, friends. If you have been enjoying Spaces Between, please take a moment to subscribe, and leaving a review is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.